A warm greetings to everyone. This is Rashmi Devi, Assistant Professor in English at Government College for Girls, Mohana, Sonipat. In this video lecture, we will discuss about the famous story The Bet, written by Anton Chekhov. First of all, we have the introduction to our writer. Anton Chekhov was a Russian playwright and short story writer who was famous for his masterful short stories and lyrical dreams. Anton Chekhov was born in 1860 in Taganrog, located in South Russia. He is the third of six children. As Anton Chekhov grew up, he attended secondary school in Taganrog and in 1879 he enrolled in the School of Medicine at the University of Moscow. 6 years later, he graduated. While in university, Anton Chekhov unfortunately got tuberculosis. Besides, he had to earn money to pay his way through college and support his family. Chekhov made a living by writing short stories, short sketches, or jokes to journals and papers. Later, a writer found his talent in writing and helped him to improve the quality of his stories. As a result, Chekhov's reputation began to grow. After his return to Russia, Chekhov created some of his best known works. In addition to that, he produced two of his major plays, The Seagull and Uncle Vanya. In 1898, the new formed Moscow Art Theatre successfully put The Seagull on the stage. Thanks to the success, the theatre also began to establish its reputation. Chekhov is famed as a master of the short stories, although some of his best prose pieces are almost novel length. The stories, as well as his better known short works, achieve their effect with a minimum of artistic means. By May 1904, Chekhov was terminally ill with tuberculosis. Mikhail Chekhov recalled that everyone who saw him secretly thought the end was not far off, but the nearer was to the end, the less he seemed to realize it. On 3rd June 1904, he set off in the Black Forest in Germany. Now we have a look at the background of the story. Anton Chekhov's Bet is a short story about a bet made between a banker and a lawyer. During a dinner party in November 1870, a wealthy banker claims that capital punishment is more humane than life imprisonment. The younger lawyer counters that to live under any circumstances is always better than death. The two debate and make a bet. If the lawyer can live in solitary confinement, the banker will give him 2 million rubles. The lawyer agrees to stay isolated in a lodge in the banker's garden for 15 years. Over the course of those 15 years, the lawyer fervently reads and studies. In the meantime, the banker's wealth begins to dwindle and he must make a rash decision in order to save his money. Characteristics of his stories and plays. Chekhov and the short story on an ambiguous note as the lawyer emerges from his confinement with a new understanding of the world and a complete rejection of materiality. Now have a look at our summary, a concise summary. A rich banker is remembering a party he hosted 15 years ago, where a debate broke out about whether capital punishment or life imprisonment is the more moral punishment. The banker argued that life in prison is just a very slow death. So it would be better to get the death penalty and get it over with. A young lawyer argued the opposite, that any life is better than death, even if it means rotting in prison for decades. Oh, it's a stalemate. So the two made a bet. If the lawyer can stand to be in voluntary solitary confinement for 15 years, the banker will pay him 2 million rupees. Now that's a lot to do. The better set him up in a guest house. The lawyer could get food, books, music, whatever he wanted, except human communication of any sort. At first, the lawyer seemed depressed, but soon began studying vigorously because no Netflix in 19th century Russia. First, he tackles languages, and a bunch of things written in them. Then the Bible. Then a crazy mix of science, literature, and other seemingly random things. Soon, the 15 years is almost up because there's no better way to pass the time than reading a bunch of obscure books, like PhDs. In the present, the banker realizes that if the lawyer wins, he won't be able to pay up the 2 millions. He has lost his banking fortune, and if he has to sell out, he will be totally bankrupt forever. The only thing to do, kill the lawyer before the 15 years end. On the last night of the prison term, the banker sneaks into the guest house. The guards are not there, so he has no trouble slipping in. The lawyer is sleeping, and just as the banker is about to finish him off, he sees that there is a note on the desk. The note says that the lawyer has spent his 15 years experiencing all that life has to offer through books. His conclusion: the material world is stupid and worthless because we are all bound to croak in the end anyways. To prove how much he rejects it, he puts his money where his mouth is, by which he means the lawyer rejects the money altogether. He promises to leave the cell 5 minutes before to forfeit any claim to the coin. The banker kisses the lawyer's head and leaves. Phew, he doesn't have to murder the guy. The next day, the guest house guard reports that the lawyer sneaked out 5 minutes early. The banker takes the note, forfeiting the money, and locks it in a safe. Now we have plot analysis. What the writer want to say, the death penalty is better or isolation is better. The setup is pretty much just the argument at the party. What's better, the death penalty or life imprisonment? There are many ways to think about this, of course, and the guests offer up some of the possible questions. For example, which one's more moral for a government to do? Or say, what would a person be more apt to tolerate, or which is less painful? Now we have some themes of our story. The very first theme is theme of wisdom and knowledge. The final twist in the bet hinges on the idea that the lawyer took all the knowledge he could get from the many books he read in the prison and turned it into wisdom. In other words, he claims that the second hand info he gets from reading is pretty much the same things as lived experience. So he has been there, done all of that, but he is not done. He also relies on this version of experience to decide that experience kind of sucks. What hangs in the balance of this weird transformation is whether the reader buys it, which means we have just met a modern day ascetic, or doesn't, which means that solitary confinement has robbed this sad man of his humanity. The second theme of our story is isolation. The bet might not actually have anything to say about the death penalty, but it can certainly be read as an experiment in solitary confinement. Sure, most prisoners are fairly deprived, but how can you figure out the effect of total isolation rather than plain old confinement? Here, a prisoner has all the physical and intellectual comforts that he could want, but he has cut off from any and all human contact. What follows is the psychological transformation of an already slightly unbalanced man into a being that loses all touch with his own humanity. The other theme of our story is sacrifice. As soon as one of the party people argues that a government that can't restore human life should not have the right to take it away. Well, we know that the theme of sacrifice is going to be important in the bet. Sacrifice done how to be the most plausible way for the banker to view the action of the lawyer, and for the lawyer himself to describe his own reaction to his voluntary imprisonment. He agrees to throw a party of his life away, to sacrifice his connection to the rest of humanity in order to find some other level of existence. But the story refuses to answer the obvious question: does he succeed? The another theme of our story is competition. By setting the action up as a bet, this story necessarily ends up being a contest between the two men involved. The one-upmanship is the reason for the bet, the reason for the raised confinement length, and the reason for the banker almost committing murder, and maybe even the reason for the lawyer's final twist of an escape. In the end, though, the bat refuses to in any way rule on the figure at its center, leaving the reader to decide whether anyone won or lost, and whether the competition between the banker and the lawyer was the strongest motivator for the action of each. Now we have two characters in this story. The first character is banker. The banker likes to be in a position of authority and likes to wield power over others, especially those who happen to disagree with him. The character changes drastically from the beginning of the story, when he seems to be very free handed as he easily bets to pay 2 millions, and later his lack of wealth drives him to dishonesty and plan for murder. This also signifies the weak character of the banker. He is very attached to the materialistic luxuries of life and values human life less than his luxuries, as he plans on killing the lawyer. He plans on killing the lawyer for money, and nothing but money changes his mind. The another character in this story is the lawyer. The lawyer is seen to be persistent, intelligent, and self motivating. He does not break down in the 15 years of imprisonment as the banker foretold. He is intelligent by the virtue of reading so many books, which reflects in his eagerness to associate with other men rather than claiming the final prize. The lawyer's character is very dynamic. He starts as a young, impatient person, ready to spend 15 years of his life for 2 millions. His imprisonment changed his life positively. He reads books, ponders over scriptures, learns languages, and plays the piano. His character is reflected when he renounces the 2 millions and settles with just having proved his point. Now is time to climax. The longer the lawyer stays, the more it looks like he will be the winner. He turns to really serious study languages, religion, and science, and seems pretty okay in his makeshift prison. It's not like he's ever going to run out of books. Meanwhile, the banker loses his fortune and starts to freak out about coughing up the 2 millions. Soon enough, he decides to murder the lawyer, but just as he is about to do it, he finds a letter in which the lawyer says that he rejects the money along with the rest of the material world. He is really a naughty material girl. You see, now that's a twist. Thank you. Have a nice day.